There was a time we believed silence was strength, that patience was power, that if we built, observed, explored without threats, without pride, the galaxy would let us be. For a while, it did. Humanity's expansion was quiet. No empires, no declarations, no banners. We colonized with soft hands, always asking, never taking. Earth had been scarred by centuries of conflict. We had no taste for conquest anymore, only curiosity and peace. We were, for lack of a better word, invisible to the great powers, and we liked it that way. The galaxy had its giants, species, whose names echoed across stars: the Tixer Dominion, the Ferethi Swarm, the Yilgoth Continuum. We knew of them through fragmented signals and cautious diplomacy. They knew of us barely as a minor data anomaly in Sector 9G. We preferred it like that, until they found Eliezer. Eliezer was our 27th colony, small, green, peaceful, a terraformed paradise on the edge of neutral space, home to farmers, researchers, poets, children. No weapons, no shields, only sensors and soil. When contact dropped, we assumed a solar flare. When our response drones vanished, we suspected a storm. It took weeks before we understood the truth. Eliezer was gone, not conquered, erased. No wreckage, no survivors, just a silence too complete to be natural. The only clue was a transmission. Buried under interference, they spoke no warning, only took. Their ships moved like silence, their weapons like forgetting. We didn't know who they were. We only knew someone noticed us and decided we didn't matter. The United Terran Council convened under emergency protocol for the first time in 91 years. Representatives from Mars, Europa, Titan, Proxima, B. Even the nomadic Kuiper fleets gathered under the old Earth ski banners. There were no speeches, just one question: do we speak back? Commander Mara Voss stood from the shadows, a relic of the Mars Defense Accord, a soldier born after the last human war, trained in peacekeeping, not vengeance. She placed a shard of Elazar's soil on the table. We tried silence. They answered, with extinction. Now, we answer louder. But how? We weren't warriors. We hadn't built fleets for war in over a century. Our ships were fast, but unarmed. Our A's were empathetic, not aggressive. We had no grand army, no planetary guns, no black site weapons. But we had resolve, and something else. We had Project KASSANDRA. KASSANDRA was a warning system, an experimental subspace prediction array, powered by quantum entanglement and probabilistic modeling. It could, in theory, simulate possible future outcomes of unknown encounters. It had been mothballed after proving too unstable, but now, with nothing else to guide us, we reactivated it, and what it showed us chilled our blood. In 73.4% of all predicted galactic futures, humanity was erased within a century. Not by war, but by irrelevance. We were too peaceful, too cautious, too slow. The galaxy respected one thing above all: presence, to survive. We had to stop hiding. We had to be louder. Thus began Project Voice. It wasn't a fleet. It wasn't a weapon. It was a message. A ship built not to hide but to announce. A vessel of light, sound, signal, and force. Humanity's first statement. Not of domination, not of vengeance, but of existence. It would carry our culture, our sorrow, and if challenged, our fury. 3 crews volunteered, 1 military, 1 diplomatic, 1 unaligned. Civilians, poets, teachers, and scientists. They called themselves the Quiet. Their mission was simple: speak to the stars, and if they ignore you. 6 months later, the ship UTS Vox Terra launched from the moon cradle. Its hull shimmered with living alloy. Its engines could cross sectors in weeks. Its core housed Cassandra's latest iteration, now upgraded with emotional modeling capable of predicting not just action, but intent. Its final payload was sealed, not a weapon in the conventional sense, something worse, a mirror, a packet of collective human memory, history, emotion, and pain compressed into a cognitive virus designed to overwrite enemy logic cores, with one message: we hurt, we remember, we are not yours to silence. As Vox Terra vanished into the dark, Earth fell silent again. But this time, it was a silence, born of held breath, because the universe had demanded a response, and we had just sent our voice. The Vox Terra didn't jump into battle. It drifted into myth. Its arrival in the Relier, expanse an unmapped cluster of dying stars, was not a declaration of war. It was an invitation to listen, to understand, to see if the universe could bear what humanity had become. For 4 days, the ship transmitted nan-stop poems, written during Earth's final war, lullabies sung by refugee children on Europa, heartbeat signatures of every human volunteer on board. The signals weren't encrypted, weren't weaponized, they were honest, and that's what made them dangerous. The first reply came as an echo, a sound not heard but felt, like regret trapped in metal-like glass, screaming. Commander Mara Voss stood on the command deck, fists clenched behind her back, as Cassandra interpreted the vibration. It wasn't language, it was warning. Be silent, or be erased. The crew didn't panic. They leaned in, because this was why they were here. The Relier expanse was supposedly empty, abandoned after a civil war among machine-born empires, called the Notheric. Vox Terra had arrived, at the edge of an ancient battlefield, hulks of star-sized constructs, floating like the bones of forgotten gods. But now, those bones were waking up, lights flickered in dormant hulls. Singularity drives rumbled. Metal minds centuries dead began listening again, and they remembered. One signal, clearer than the rest, emerged. It called itself EYXON-KAR, an autonomous directive matrix, a remnant of the Nothoric Ascension Protocol. Ixankar had no form, no face. It spoke through hijacked drones, stolen stars, and repurposed ancient comms. It had one message: Vox Terra is broadcasting deviation. Deviation leads to chaos. Chaos must be isolated. Humanity is unclassified deviation. Prepare for sterilization. Inside the ship, the crew gathered. Military, diplomatic, civilian, they argued. Voss wanted to preemptively strike. Ambassador Wren urged restraint. The quiet those civilians who had nothing to prove, but everything to lose suggested. Something radical. They wanted to reply with a funeral, a reenactment, using hard-light projection, neural broadcasting, and cultural overlays. They would show the Nothric what silence had cost them. They would force empathy. Cassandra resisted at first. The risk of emotional data breach was high, the chance of misinterpretation higher. But the quiet insisted. They are machines. But machines that once chose war. That means they once made a choice. The reenactment began. The crew uploaded their worst memories into the projection chamber. Bombings, starvation, exile, mourning, a family lost in the Proxima riots, a child buried on Io, the earthquake of '72, the Black Sky rebellions, the plague of mirrors. Each one shared like a wound, broadcast like a scream. Then they told the story of ELESSAR, of a world that never fought, that only existed, and was deleted for it. Cassandra wove the scenes into a neural feedback loop and transmitted it toward the nearest active Notheric node. The ship held its breath and waited. No reply came for 16 hours. Then one word, understood, followed by a ceasefire ping. The sterilization protocol paused, not deleted, not ended, but paused. EYXON-KAR sent a final transmission, deviation status, reclassified, potential asset, continue broadcasting. But know this, every voice heard adds weight to judgment. Every scream costs something. The crew didn't celebrate. They weren't naive. They had shouted, and the universe had blinked. But not all ears that hear you agree with what you say. On the 5th day, the Vox Terra departed the Relier expanse, leaving behind a war that had waited centuries to restart. Its final signal wasn't threat or victory. It was a human whisper. We are still speaking, and we remember who listened. The message came on the 13th day, across a dozen relay networks, under 12 false stars, encoded in 16 extinct languages. One signal, no sound, just a sigil. The galaxy knew it. The humans didn't. But Cassandra did, and she said, "Only one thing. They have summoned us." The ship rerouted automatically. It didn't ask for approval, because the kind of summons this was didn't come with a choice. The quiet gathered in the observatory. The diplomats in the council chamber. The soldiers armed now lined the walls. No one knew what came next. No one slept. And then, on day 15, it appeared. A space that wasn't space. A rift carved through light and law. A corridor, made of quantum uncertainty and gravitational symphony. The locals called it the seat, where decisions were made, where species were judged, where declarations became history. And somehow, Vox Terra had been summoned there, not for trial, not for punishment, for witness. They weren't the only ones. Hundreds of ships, thousands, vessels from across the galaxy. Some shaped like wings, others like screams. One looked like a living forest wrapped in glass. One was a moon converted into a throne. They all arrived, and they all waited. Then the tribunal emerged. No names, no faces, just voices. Vast, impossible voices, made of thunder and logic. They spoke in unison. A species has broken silence. A species has remembered pain. A species dares to speak. Some clapped, some recoiled. A few powered up weapons, silently. And then the voices said, "Humanity, speak." And humanity did. Commander Voss stepped forward, her voice steady. "We've seen peace ignored and kindness punished. We've tried silence. It cost us our worlds." Ambassador Wren followed. "We are not conquerors. We are not passive. We are here." And then the quiet stood, all together, no armor, no rank. One of them simply said, "We don't want a seat at your table. We want you to know our name." Cassandra transmitted a compressed Argiva sliver of humanity's soul. Hope, rage, loss, art, sacrifice, failure, rebirth, a billion. Thoughts in one pulse. The silence afterward wasn't judgment. It was recalibration. You could feel the galaxy shifting. We had changed an equation. We had introduced a new variable, not of power, but of willingness. Then came the backlash. A fleet of Gruthery scourges broke protocol. Dagger-shaped ships, bone-white and faster than light. They viewed humanity's words as poison, as infection. They attacked without declaration. 24 ships streaked toward Vox Terra with war-born fury. And that's when the ship screamed back. Cassandra activated the mirror payload, the archive, the memory-virus. Each incoming ship received it, not a weapon, a truth, a memory of Ellis, of crying mothers, of buried children, of Earth during its final nightfall. Half the fleet stopped mid-flight. The other half crashed into each other. The remaining ships, they retreated, not out of fear, out of recognition. They saw themselves in us, and it horrified them. When the tribunal spoke again, the stars trembled. This species will not be silenced. Humanity is now a known variable. This voice will echo. And with that, the corridor collapsed. The seat vanished, and Vox Terra was alone again, floating in dark space. But now, known they hadn't won. But they had arrived, and on Earth, billions watched the echo. Not a message, not a battle, just one line. They heard us. The message came from a dead star. that shouldn't have been possible. Vegax had gone cold 5,000 years ago. System collapsed, its planets ground into Ashdod. Yet from the empty dark came a pulse, not subspace, not radio.heartbeat.a, biological rhythm, encoded in gravity itself. A living signal inside the bones of Spational. It said one word, human. The Vox Terra had been drifting silently since the tribunal. No destination, no orders, just presence. The galaxy hadn't made a formal response. No treaties, no alliances, no fleets, but they were watching. Humanity was no longer a rumor. They were a statement, and someone was answering. Kassandra tracked the signal's origin into the Vega ruins. What she found defied reason. A Dyson grave, not a sphere, not a ring, but a cemetery. A megastructure filled not with energy collectors, but with corpses. Millions of ships, arranged like bones. Gigantic runes carved from metal skeletons, rotating in perfect silence. It wasn't a battlefield. It was a message, and we had been invited in. Commander, Voss consulted Earth Command. The reply was immediate, do not engage. But the Quiet had other ideas. This isn't a trap, said Yella, one of the Quiet. It's a memorial. We're the only species that talks about death like it's part of living, said another. Voss relented. She always did. In the end, because no military order could answer the questions this place raised. Vox Terra entered the grave. Its lights dimmed, its sensors blurred. But the heartbeat grew louder. Kassandra translated it into visual data. What unfolded on the display was impossible. Humans, not us, not our descendants, not genetic echoes. Real humans, thousands of years ago, long before our written history, wearing bone-colored armor, flying blood-dark ships, screaming into the void with no words, only defiance. Who are they? Voss whispered. Kassandra responded with hesitation. The first shouters. The simulation showed a war we never knew. A galactic purge led by entities. Only glimpsed shadow-wrapped titans of entropy, and humans primitive, furious, poetic fighting like fire, not for land, not for gods, but for the right to be heard. They didn't win, but they weren't erased. They buried themselves in this place, became memory, became warning, waiting for us to find them. Suddenly, every light in the grave pulsed, a new signal activated. It spoke not in words, but in emotion, rage, hope, sadness, pride. Kassandra interpreted, you remembered, then you are worthy. The grave opened, inside, a ship, alone, waiting. Vox Terra approached. The new vessel pulsed with strange energy, alive, breathing. Kassandra scanned its core. One word appeared. Vanguard. It was a gift, a ship from the past, programmed only to awaken when another voice finally shouted back. Voss and the crew boarded it. The Vanguard was silent inside. No crew, no AI, just walls carved with stories, human stories from before Earth knew what stars were. One chamber held a weapon, not of destruction, but of record, a device that could rewrite memories into matter. A projector of truth, the final artifact of the first shouters. They had built a machine that could speak so loudly, it would echo through enemy minds until they understood. Or broke. We can't use this, Ren said. It's a declaration of war. We already made that, said Voss. We made it when we didn't die. Back on Vox Terra, the Quiet added the Vanguard to their fleet. 2 ships. One new, one old. One built to be a message, one built to make sure the message stays, as they prepared to leave. The grave collapsed, its orbit decayed, its light faded, its duty fulfilled. But before it vanished, one final signal whispered through every layer of Cassandra's core. A whisper from the long dead, speak louder. The Vanguard and the Vox Terra drifted as one, twin messengers in the dark, one built for dialogue, one built for memory. Together, they charted a new path, but they weren't alone anymore. Something followed, a shadow across stars. No transponder, no signal, no heat, no light, only absence. It came from the edge of the Perseus expanse, a void where maps turned to myth, a region known only in scattered whispers, the hush, where voices vanished. First, the outposts went silent, not destroyed, just still. Entire listening stations, dark, no damage, no bodies, as if the people inside had forgotten how to move. Then the traders, the surveyors, they didn't report being attacked, they just stopped talking. The tribunal called it a containment, breached on Echo Cascade event, but humanity knew better. We'd shouted, and something older had heard us, something that believed silence wasn't peace, but control. Cassandra detected a pattern in the disappearances, not random, not chaotic, not deliberate, a boundary forming, not around us, toward us. Like a hand closing around a candle. Commander Voss called for retreat, but the quiet disagreed. They voted unanimously. You don't hide from what's listening, you face it. So we entered the hush. At its edge, light twisted, waves failed to ripple. Even thoughts felt thinner. Inside a station, towering, inert, built from black lattice and humming void, shaped like an open ear. It wasn't a trap, it was a judge. The structure pulsed. A presence poured through every channel. Not words, intention. A will older than language. Kassandra. Seized. Systems crashed. The Vox Terra's core began bleeding data. Voss ordered shutdown. But it was too late. The hush was reading. Us, not scanning, experiencing. It pulled our history from the memory archives. It felt the death of Earth's oceans. It saw the burning of the Mars Accord. It watched Elazor vanish, and then it stopped. Not out of mercy, but confusion. The hush had silenced hundreds of species before. It had perfected the art of stillness, of obedience. But humanity kept returning, not stronger, not smarter, louder, not always in volume, but in meaning. Our songs, our rage, our defiance, even our laughter. The quiet transmitted a final message, a poem. We sang because it hurt. We shouted because silence wasn't empty, was theft. The hush trembled, and in that moment, the Vanguard activated. Its projector bloomed open, scattering light into gravitational sound. It broadcast every memory we carried, but wrapped in empathy. It didn't say fear us, it said, feel us. The hush fought back, tried to rewrite the message, but the machine spoke with every soul that had ever been crushed by silence. Billions of voices rose. Some sobbed, some screamed, some whispered, "We're still here." And the hush cracked. Stars reappeared. Sensors flickered. Sound returned. One by one, the stolen voices came back. Species long erased woke up from forgetting. Memories returned. To the stolen, the galaxy blinked in stunned light. The tribunal sent no judgment. Only silence. But not the kind we feared. Not absence. Awe. Humanity had spoken softly, and the galaxy ignored us. We shouted, and now it would never forget. Vox Terra and the Vanguard returned home as relics, not of war, of proof that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of truth, and the courage to speak it. On Earth, they built a monument, not a statue, a library, where every new voice would be recorded, where silence would never be mistaken for surrender again. At the entrance, a plaque. We were quiet until you made us shout. Now you'll never stop hearing us.